Reynolds felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. His entire career, his entire identity was hanging in the balance. He could fight this. He could deny everything, push back, walk away. Or he could face the truth. A long silence stretched between them. Then finally, Reynolds took a slow breath, his hands unclenched. And in that moment, he made his choice. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, a voice cut through the air. "Officer Reynolds." They all turned. Standing on the sidewalk was the young man from the photo, the same one Reynolds had stopped months ago. And the look on his face said everything. The story wasn't over yet. Reynolds felt his chest tighten as he locked eyes with the young man. He looked different now, not just older, but more sure of himself. There was no fear in his stance this time, only quiet recognition. The street felt eerily still as everyone waited for what would happen next. The captain turned to the young man and gave a small nod. "I asked him to come," he said, glancing at Reynolds. "I thought you should meet him again, under different circumstances." Reynolds' throat felt dry. He wanted to say something, but what could he say? Sorry, didn't mean to, none of it felt like enough. The young man took a step forward. "Do you even remember me?" His voice was calm, but there was something behind it, something that told Reynolds that Stop had stayed with him for a long time. Reynolds swallowed hard. He did remember. Not just the stop, but the way the kid had looked at him, confused, scared, unsure why he was being treated like a suspect. "I remember," Reynolds said, his voice lower than he expected. The young man studied him and nodded. "That night, I went home and told my dad what happened. You know what he said?" He let the words hang before answering his own question. He said, "You met one of the bad ones tonight. But not all of them are like that." He tilted his head. I wasn't sure if he was right. Reynolds felt something shift inside him, something he couldn't ignore anymore. Monroe crossed her arms. "So, Officer Reynolds, what now?" The question wasn't just about this moment. It was about everything. About who he was before today and who he would be after. Reynolds let out a slow breath. He thought about the badge on his chest, what it was supposed to mean. Then he looked at the young man again. "I don't know if I can fix what happened that night," he admitted, "but I can make sure it doesn't happen again." The captain gave a small nod, as if that was the only answer he had been waiting for. The young man studied Reynolds for a moment longer, then simply said, "I hope so." And with that, he turned and walked away. Reynolds stood there, watching him go, knowing he would never forget this moment. He had spent years believing he was doing the right thing, but today had changed everything. And now, it was up to him to decide what kind of officer he would be tomorrow. It was supposed to be a routine traffic stop, the kind that happens every day. But what unfolded on that quiet street would leave everyone involved stunned. A young white police officer, full of confidence but blind to his own assumptions, spotted a sleek black SUV cruising through the neighborhood. Something about it didn't sit right with him. Maybe it was the tinted windows. Maybe it was the driver, a middle-aged black man dressed casually. Whatever the reason, he flicked on his lights and pulled the car over. As he stepped out, his heart pounded with adrenaline. He had done this 100 times before, and today was no different, or so he thought. With a firm voice, he barked commands. "License and registration." The driver calmly complied, reaching for his wallet. But the officer wasn't interested in small talk. He was focused, convinced he had the upper hand. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. The driver hesitated for a moment, then sighed, unbuckled his seatbelt, and did as he was told. He knew exactly where this was going. Standing face to face now, the officer's tone turned sharp. He questioned the man like a suspect, his words laced with assumptions. But then something shifted. The driver, patient yet unwavering, reached into his back pocket and pulled out something unexpected, his badge. Not just any badge, a captain's badge. The young officer's face paled, his confidence crumbled. The very man he had been treating like a criminal was not only a fellow officer, but outranked him by miles. And that's when everything changed. What happened next left the officer speechless, and the captain with a choice that could alter both of their lives forever. Stay tuned, because what unfolds from here is nothing short of shocking. The street was silent, except for the sound of the officer's heavy breathing. His mind raced as he stared at the badge in the man's hand. It wasn't fake. It wasn't some cheap replica. It was real. And the words on it made his stomach drop. Asterisk, asterisk, police captain, asterisk, asterisk. The captain held his gaze, his expression unreadable. He had been in law enforcement long enough to recognize that look in the young officer's eyes: fear, embarrassment, and something else. A realization creeping in, slow but undeniable. The officer swallowed hard, his grip tightening on his belt. He fumbled for words, his confidence slipping away. Just moments ago, he had been in control. Now, he was standing in front of a superior officer, realizing he had crossed a line. The captain let out a slow breath. "What's your name, officer?" His tone was calm, but there was weight behind it. "Oh, Officer Reynolds, sir," the young cop stammered. "Officer Reynolds," the captain repeated, nodding slightly. "Do you know why you pulled me over?" Reynolds shifted on his feet. He knew what he wanted to say, but suddenly, everything he thought made sense didn't anymore. Was it really just the car, the tinted windows, or was it something else he didn't want to admit? I thought there might be suspicious activity," he muttered. The captain raised an eyebrow. "Suspicious how?" The question hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Reynolds had no good answer. His training told him to trust his instincts, but now those instincts were being challenged. A car passed by slowly, the driver glancing at them before continuing down the street. The captain noticed it. He knew what it looked like: a white officer stopping a black man, voices tense, body language stiff. He had seen scenes like this play out too many times, and he never thought he'd be in one himself. Reynolds cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the situation. "Sir, maybe we should just forget this happened." But the captain shook his head. "No, Officer Reynolds, we're not just going to forget this." And in that moment, Reynolds knew this was far from over. The street felt colder now, even though the sun still hung in the sky. Officer Reynolds shifted uncomfortably, his fingers twitching at his side. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, making it harder to breathe. The captain, standing calm and composed, studied him, not with anger, but with something even more unsettling: disappointment. "Walk me through it," the captain said, his voice steady. "What exactly made you think I was suspicious?" Reynolds opened his mouth, then closed it. He had reasons, didn't he? The car, the neighborhood, the way the driver looked. But now, under the captain's gaze, every justification felt flimsy. His mind scrambled for something to say, but nothing sounded right. The silence stretched. The captain finally sighed and put his badge away, but his eyes never left Reynolds. "How long have you been on the force?" 2 years, sir," Reynolds answered quickly, as if the response might somehow redeem him. Reynolds' stomach twisted. He knew exactly what the footage would show: his rigid posture, his sharp tone, his impatience, the way he had assumed control without cause, and the way the captain had calmly shattered his confidence with nothing but the truth. He opened his mouth, searching for an answer, but before he could speak, the radio in his patrol car crackled to life. "Unit 23, we have a disturbance reported at the corner of Lexington and 5th. Possible altercation. Backup requested." Reynolds exhaled, relief flooding him. This was his chance. An out. Something real, something urgent. "I should respond to that," he said quickly, reaching for his radio. But the captain raised a hand. "No." Reynolds froze. "Sir, it's a backup call." "I know what it is," the captain said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were locked onto Reynolds like he was testing him. "Another unit will take it. You stay here. The rejection hit hard, and for the first time, Reynolds felt something new, doubt. Not in them, but in himself. The captain didn't trust him to handle a simple call, and maybe, for the first time, Reynolds was starting to understand why. Then the second twist hit. A car rolled up to the curb, an older model sedan with tinted windows. The engine idled for a second before the doors swung open. A woman stepped out, late 40s, sharp eyes, and in her hands a folder. The captain turned to her and nodded. Thanks for coming. She barely glanced at him before setting her eyes on Reynolds. Officer Reynolds, she said coolly, we need to talk. Reynolds' heart skipped. This wasn't just some random official. He recognized her now. *** Detective Lisa, Monroy ** Internal Affairs. His mouth went dry. What's this about? Monroe handed the folder to Sanders, who opened it and flipped through the pages. He scanned them quickly, then looked up. You tell me, Sanders said, holding up a document. Because according to this isn't the first time you've made a stop like this. Reynolds' blood turned to ice. The captain crossed his arms. I wanted to believe this was a mistake, Reynolds. But now we've got a problem. The air around them tightened, the silence louder than any siren. Reynolds' pulse pounded in his ears. This wasn't just about today anymore. This was about his past. And if they had proof, real proof, then he wasn't just fighting for his career. He was fighting for the truth. Reynolds' breath caught in his throat as the weight of the moment crashed over him. He could feel the sweat gathering at his collar, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. It wasn't just a mistake. It was an investigation. His mind raced. Calc, did they have anything on him? He had always followed protocol. At least, that's what he told himself. But as Sanders flipped through the file, his stomach twisted. Monroe took a step forward, eyes sharp. We've reviewed multiple stops you've made over the past year, she said. Patterns don't lie. Reynolds shook his head. What patterns? She pulled a page from the folder and held it up. Traffic stops initiated without probable cause. Reports that don't match body cam footage. And in every case, the drivers look a lot like Captain Johnson here. The words hit like a slap. His chest tightened. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but his mind kept replaying moments, split-second decisions, gut feelings, stops that felt routine. ****, he'd been doing this all along without realizing it. The captain watched him carefully. You're not the first officer to get caught in this cycle, Reynolds. And I know you think you were just doing your job. He paused. But tell me this, if nobody stopped you today, how long before this turned into something worse? Reynolds' pulse pounded in his ears. His whole career flashed in front of him, every badge he had ever polished, every oath he had ever sworn. He had never thought of himself as the problem. But standing here now, faced with evidence, he wasn't sure anymore. Then, Monroe reached into the folder and pulled out something else. A photo. She handed it to him without a word. Reynolds hesitated before looking down. His stomach dropped. It was a still image from body cam footage, not from today, but from a stop months ago. A young black man standing outside his car, hands raised, fear in his eyes. And the officer in front of him. Reynolds, His own voice echoed in his head. Step out of the vehicle. The memory crashed back. He had stopped the kid for a broken taillight. But looking at it now, the way he had spoken, the way he had escalated, it wasn't about the taillight, was it? The captain's voice was quiet but firm. You need to decide, Reynolds. Are you going to be the kind of officer who learns from this, or the kind who pretends it never happened?